Just stop it. The run-of-the-mill, cheesy, humdrum bullshit status quo just tires me out. What fascinates me are the industry disruptors, the superhuman frontiersmen or women who go through hell to achieve their goals. Join me as we meet and learn from those mavericks, rebels, and business leaders that aren't afraid to piss off the establishment in order to make radical change for good. Sponsored by Johto PR, the disruptive anti-PR firm that murders your competition with cinder blocks and cyanide. This is Disruption Interruption. Welcome back, everybody, to Disruption Interruption. I'm your host, KJ, and we're here today to talk to another industry leader that has steered off the lame, tired path of the status quo. The way we treat aging in this country is not well. We've been conditioned to believe that once you reach a certain age, your only options are to pay for an insanely expensive 24-hour nurse or to move into a facility that feels more like a waiting room for a hospital. The industry is facing a massive workforce shortage, and their answer is usually just to hire more people who don't exist. Now, part of them are terrified of tech because they think it's too cold or intrusive. Well, our guest today is here to prove that the most human thing we can do for seniors is to let them be and let AI do the heavy lifting. She's disrupting the reactive care status quo. We're talking about a 42% reduction in hospital days and a 9 times reduction in falls. She isn't just monitoring seniors, she's giving them back their lives by creating a digital caring environment that stays in the background. We're diving into why senior care in the industry is so resistant to saving its own neck and how AI can see a fall coming days before it happens, and why aging in place is the future that makes sense. Please welcome our disruptor, the CEO of Zempli, Aparna Pujar.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Yes, thank you for doing what you're doing. Okay, my father built and ran retirement homes, in my life, right? I'm sort of familiar with this industry, right? And so I'm really very interested in, what you know and teaching our audience, what's really happening in the status quo. Before we get to this, Aparna, please tell our audience, what has driven you towards disruptive innovation in your life?
Yeah, so let me start off by why and how I started Zempli. So I started Zempli because I became a remote caregiver for my aging parents who live out in India. So I was halfway across the world from them. I was a mid-career executive working for a Fortune 100 company, eBay, at the time, and was really overwhelmed and challenged with managing both sides of, caring for them. A sandwich generation caregiver, I had kids at home, and then taking care of my parents who lived halfway across the world. My dad had chronic conditions, so it was one episode after another that required attention. And his deterioration started with a fall. So, and then that led to complications. In his way, he always wanted to stay in his home, never considered moving into a facility, into a community or an assisted living institution. Primarily because it was a home he had built and he had memories associated with it, and he really was proud of all that. And it felt to me that if I took him out of that environment, his deterioration would just rapidly happen. And so just to keep him thriving, keeping him in that home became an essential part of how care had to be done. And so the rest of the family aligned towards that vision that he set for himself. And then, we just executed and wanted to make that happen for him. And
That's
one
lovely.
of the things,
That's really lovely. Yes.
one of the things he encouraged me to do is, he sort of, he was an entrepreneur, a businessman himself, and, a technical guy, and, come up with something that will make it easy for you to. So that's what led to the formation of Zempli. And, after tinkering I'm a technologist, I'm an electrical engineer by education and computer science, and then, worked in the IT industry forever. And so had sort of was at this point where so I've built all these technology solutions, and all of them were really successful products and services that we built. And I felt like, that technology can be better deployed to this challenge that it's a macro challenge. Everybody goes through this. And so I decided to take a sabbatical from eBay where I was working, and then started this company. It was an idea initially, and my parents were my guinea pigs. I tried everything on them, took the feedback. The risk was very low when you're working with your own parents, so it
Right.
was battle tested that way, and that eventually led to the formation of Zempli.
Wow, what a great story. I love the personal connection there. So it's really been like deep empathy, obviously, for the situation and caring, and it relates back to you personally. Yeah. That's one of the beauties of this particular podcast is interviewing people like you that have decided to do things to make it better for others. And I think this is a really like a pent up demand like for this large market. So I know personally what happened but what have you as you really started to look into it, right? About the shortage of workers and what's happening with, elderly and like tell us a bit about the status quo. Like what is no longer tenable?
So I think this is 2026, and we live in the age of where everything is being reimagined through all the technology that's coming into the market. And being a technologist, I'm sort of biased towards it. I've always believed that a good product or a good technological product can actually help drive outcomes exponentially.
Hmm.
I've seen that, I've lived that through my life. And for me, when I started looking at this problem, one thing that struck me was how fragmented and broken the marketplace was. And to me, it wasn't like, I'm used to building products and services, but when I first looked at the healthcare, this is not just healthcare, I think healthcare in general is very fragmented, but the senior care industry is even more, fragmented. And so building a product that can scale, which is what is needed for you to reduce the cost, right? So when a
Yeah.
technology scales, that's when the per capita cost of consuming that technology comes down. And that became the hardest challenge to overcome when we first started this company. And so my co-founder and I, we sort of got together and says, what are we in this for? We're not building technology piece of solution for the sake of building a solution. We were right off the gate says, oh, we're not going to build a point solution. We have to structure this as a platform that can scale because that was the one that we felt can bring a solution into the market that will then start addressing the very fundamental challenge of this, which is the economics of providing care for an elderly. So it's 2026, there's about 80 million people, baby boomer generation that's coming into the market.
Coming into the market, not
And
even
that's
what's already here.
yeah, and that's 10 to 15 years from now. And we're all, living, this entire population is going to live with a lot more chronic conditions that have to be managed. And it's an inflection point right now where, I think episodic care is going away. It sort of started with, the Dexcom or the Libra patch that came in where glucose monitoring started showing massive improvements with the continuous glucose monitoring. So we sort of said, well, that's the future of where this should be. That's the future of where healthcare should be. It cannot be based on very episodic, single event.
I
I'm sick,
see.
I go to the doctor. So the more, and that required you to build a technological layer because continuous monitoring is continuous data, streams of data that are being generated that are coming into platforms. And there is a lot of AI tools now that can actually help make sense of that data.
Right.
In the
That
past,
makes,
that, yeah,
when
go
you
ahead.
say senior care is very fragmented, that has a lot of knowledge behind that. Can you give us some examples?
So I think so if you look at the industry, the way it's structured today, about 20% of the population is probably living in institutional settings, so like senior
Mm-hmm.
living communities, etc. And largely 80% of the population is out there in their homes. And most often determining their care needs comes very late in the game.
Right.
And it's a very expensive delay, as in,
Yeah.
some families will start looking for caregiving options after an incident or an episode that happens. And usually that happens with a fall or some serious hospitalization, like a cardiac arrest or something like that. And that's when the entire planning for care happens. And, no one is prepared for this. It sort of comes sudden. And
It
typically
does come
families,
sudden, doesn't it? I think a lot of times
right.
our parents, they don't let us know things, right?
Yeah, and parents don't tell you because, they don't want to bother you. That's something. And, half the time they're like, if you ask them, they'll always say, oh, I'm doing fine. Nothing is wrong with me. Right. So
Right.
don't worry about me. Right. So So then you're trying to deal with this a lot of unknowns, and then suddenly that unknown exposes itself as some known, which is very critical. And that's when, you start thinking, I need to bring care for my parents because now they can live by themselves. And you're learning on the job all the time. It's not like you come into this world knowing how to care for an elderly person. So it's
No, it's
constantly
so true.
improvising, learning on the job. And a lot of it is coordination with, different stakeholders, whether it's your clinical provider, like your doctor, your nephrologist, your cardiologist, and then the nurses, and then siblings, right? Your family members. So it's a lot of back and forth communication, back and forth exchange of information, all that while still trying to keep the person, like your elderly older adult, at the center of this. And it is a complex mind game, if you can say that. And it can.
It's a really good description. It's a very complex mind game.
Yeah, and it can take a toll on you, right? So eventually the caregiver has to be the person who has to take on this responsibility, make the right decision. There's a lot of judgment involved in it. And so what is needed, therefore, then the question is, how to make the job easy for that person, right? So part
Yeah.
of it is simplify the decision-making process, which to the extent that collecting data, collecting information, processing it, synthesizing it, and giving it in a way that makes sense will probably reduce that overload for that
Yeah.
person. And then building something, that can give them the peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, the caregiver is also the part of this ecosystem, right? So they are also
System. I
responsible.
mean, just what I know about the caregivers, and I love how you make this so simple, but you simplify the decision making. But let's go back just a little bit, and I want to find out more about this. Number one, it's a mind game, but number two, I know a lot of caregivers it falls on women, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This affects the women in the workplace. It affects their ability to like hold down a full-time job. It affects their family. The mind game there is the women, we need to be we need to be the superheroes, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's very emotionally connected because it's our family members. And not only, we mentioned it earlier, it's, of course, it's critical care. So then that's like, more expensive and like longer stays in the hospital and many things that have been exacerbated to a point that what you're saying is early monitoring and simplifying it like earlier could eliminate some of this, or I don't know. I don't know if the word prolong is right, but get it to a point where it's not so dire or serious.
Yeah, and so I think the way to look at this is, there are a lot of options available for people today, right? So in the past, the option used to be, hey, I need to bring a caregiver, and then you start with 1 day a week, and then you go 3 days a week and 8 days a week, and then you'll hit a point where it says, oh, I can no longer afford this, and so now the family caregiver has to step in to cover the gap, and that on its own is, it depends on the family member situation, whether they have a job, full-time job, or, they're
Yeah.
caring for their own families. So it's a complex socioeconomic problem. That's how I put it, right? And then, so it's even if you were observing or if you were caring for your parent, the job you're doing is, constantly monitoring them, right? Either, but it's the human way of monitoring is only left to, what you're seeing with this person when you're in front of them. But when you're
Yeah.
not in front of them, right, a lot of things happen. And then that's the blind spot. So you don't get visibility into that. And so you need a system. So when you have breaks in that pattern, that's when you miss the context. So when you miss the context, your ability to make decisions also diminishes, right? So because it's, oh, what happened when I was not there? He was fine. I came back home. He was not okay. So you go through this all the time. So what you need is something that's continuously telling you what's going on with this person. And when you have that, you can be very confident in the decisions you make. So you're not guessing, you're not anticipating or speculating. So you exactly know what happened. My dad was doing fine yesterday, something happened. Even if I wasn't there, the system told me what went wrong. Now I have the full context. Now I can make a decision. So should I bring him to a primary care physician? Should I take him to an ED? Or he's just fine and I just need to call him and say, I love you.
Right.
Right. So that's it. I
Which is
mean,
a great piece of medicine, isn't it? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So
Well, let's
that's
The
between the
monitoring
two.
part, like what are some of the things that you can monitor and where did you start? You obviously picked something that was probably most common, right? And you made it very
Yeah,
simple. I'd love to hear this.
yeah. So when I was looking for a solution, I was very restricted with what was available off the shelf because, when you are in distress, you're saying, oh, let me start, picking something and put together something. So what I started was with a basic, home security system. So that's what it was. Like, I worked with this manufacturer who, and this was back in India, right? So I was trying to put the
Yeah.
system in India. And he had a combination of gadgetry that I said, okay, I need this, I need that, put it there, put it here. So I brought him in and he set it up and he sort of gave me access to a mobile app that they had where I could continuously watch, if my father was in the bedroom, was in the bathroom, was he sitting on a chair, etc. And so that in itself changed my life so much. I'm like, okay, at least I know he's moving around the house, uh,
Okay.
which which means
So
he's
so
okay.
it was an ability to detect motion when and where
Yeah.
he was.
So it
Okay.
was just, and even that simple notion, right, that
Yeah.
he's moving around was a huge peace of mind for me. I just decided,
Yeah.
okay, that's enough. I don't need to know more because I can
Because it
call him
filled the
always, and I
vacuum. You weren't worried about,
I
our
wasn't worried
mind
about.
goes crazy if we don't know, right?
Exactly. And for me, the other thing was, so India is exactly 12 and a half hours away from here. So it was when it was our daytime, it was their nighttime. So every
Right.
time he woke up in the night to go to the bathroom, I would be able to say, okay, he's moving around.
Okay.
So until he came back and went back to his bed, I would keep an eye in double quotes on that motion activity in the home. And so I knew he was safe. So that's how it kind of evolved. And it really was, I wasn't trying to build a complex system. I was just like, this is enough. To me, that movement or that activity was a vital sign. In
Mm-hmm.
addition to, like I said, he had chronic conditions. He was pretty good at managing those on his own. But
Right.
this was sort of not something as part of what he was doing. So that was what led to saying, okay, this is what is missing in the solution, right? I guess when people are managing chronic conditions, they're pretty diligent about managing them because a doctor tells them to do that. But no one tells them how to, move around safely in the house.
Right.
So this is what was the missing component, and I'm so glad that it sort of dawned on me that I think that is enough to get started. And then over time, of course, Zempli has added more things to what we do because our trajectory with even our product has gone with how our clients' needs have changed. So
Yeah.
we sort of now go across the spectrum, offer not only what we call as activity or behavior monitoring, we also do health monitoring through collecting vitals. We're very optimistic about, the new generation of devices that are coming into the market. I feel like they can be an additive component to what we're already doing. And then we're also slowly starting to look at assisting them with stemming the cognitive decline. So
So
through
what are some of the other
sensitivity.
ways that you monitor, like based on the tech that's out there, right? Like, is it heart monitoring, obviously, and what else? Balance? I don't know.
We monitor movement mostly.
Okay.
So through that, we derive a lot of, how often are they using certain parts of their homes? Because we know that, if they're in a craft room, that is telling us a different signal that they're engaged with some activity that they're interested in. So
Yeah.
many of our clients are in their garage, doing some work, either on their car or cleaning. So what we're trying to see is, if this person is when they're in their home, if they're actively engaged in a positive way. And so
Hmm.
that sort of gives us subtle signals on whether, we can assess whether they're on the onset of cognitive decline or not, or if they're going through depression. And so those are the signals we watch for and then go back and, insert a piece of education or guidance through an Alexa integration that we have. So that helps us kind of round out all the offerings that we have for them.
Hmm.
So our goal is to make sure that we convert this home into a fully equipped digital caring platform for them. So that becomes sort of like the essential part of how they eventually want to envision their life in the last 20, 30 years. So
Yeah.
anything that helps them continue to opt into staying at home, we want to be able to offer that.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Where
We do help with, tracking their nutrition, for example. We put sensors on the refrigerator. So every time they're interacting with the sensors, we know they're attempting to eat. Medicine sometimes is stored in the refrigerator. So we also say, okay, they're attempting to take their meds. And again, all through very simple tech, right? We're trying to not increase the cognitive load for them by, learn new technology, et cetera. It's all passive. We call it lifestyle integrated, as and when they're going about their daily life, these sensors are collecting data and stitching together the information. So this is what's happening in your mom or dad's life
Wow.
today or right now. And so
Wow.
that's the power of what the technology can do.
So it's like giving like care and comfort and like clinical support at home.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Wow.
so our AI, it's a native AI platform. So we, built it's called attentive AI. So the goal therefore was to make it act like an attendant inside the home. Except it's an
Ah,
attendant that exists through the sensor-based system.
that's amazing. Your dad must be very proud of you.
He was. I lost my dad unfortunately 2 years ago, but
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
he was very
Uh,
proud of you.
He
Yeah.
was very happy with the solution. I would say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I think in his own mind, he didn't want, again, like all loving parents are, they always don't want to think that they're a burden to the children. So he was like, if this makes your job easy, I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What a legacy to bring forward for him. That's great.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like your biggest challenges?
Biggest challenges. Okay, so I think if when you're talking about the current present day scenarios, the bigger challenges are, I think, the cuts. I mean, financially, what has happened to this industry is, the Medicare and Medicaid cuts and how they're impacting care at the lowest levels, at the grassroots level. And I feel like, although there are new initiatives that are in place to help encourage or change the healthcare delivery model, I think a lot of this is sort of, it trickles down to the details and eventually how that impacts the older adults. I feel like as a society, we have to focus on older adults very specifically because like I said, it's a socioeconomic problem. It has to be addressed at the right level. And when you marginalize that and just treat it as, episodic care or, I'll only care for them when they come to the hospital. And after that, I'm not. So then that not only affects everybody, it affects everybody intergenerationally, right? So that's the challenge. And I think if the healthcare worldwide, I mean, this is not just specific to US, I would say this is
Right.
a global problem. We have to recognize that, this is both a challenge and an opportunity to get it right, because ultimately we are going to be the consumers of the system that we're going to build, right?
A
So
hundred percent. Yes.
everybody is going to get old and we will reach that point. So we have to design our future. And if we want, and we have to think about it the way and so to me, that was also part of the driver for why I started the company, because I said, no, I'm going to be a part of the system 20 years from now. So how do I want that to work for me? And women, especially, we outlive men, so we're part of the
Yeah,
statistic. So
you're
to me,
100% right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Not only is this
essential,
helping the women caregivers, it's helping the women that are living longer. I mean, it's
right?
the full circle of life here, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. So we will spend a good, portion of our life being caregivers, and then we will have to become care seekers, and we have to create a system where, it's balanced out.
Yeah, exactly right. I love what you're doing. Okay, what is the meaning behind the name Zempli?
Actually, it came from a lot of brainstorming exercises that we did as how do we the concept was how do we exemplify care, right? So how do we
Oh,
set a good example for what the care should be? So the exemplary sort of was a fun aspect of exemplification. So we took out the E and the phi in the end and just
I
stayed
love
with the
it.
root one.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. That's great. Okay, just a totally random question. What do you do in your free time? What kind of hobbies or things do you do when you're not working on Zimply?
Mostly reading. I love reading. So I'm reading a lot of books these days. I also hike a lot. Being in California, I'm an outdoors person, so I hike. I'm usually practicing for long hikes. I just finished doing the Machu Picchu Inca Trail
You
last
did.
year.
I did that one.
Now
I'm gonna send you my
yeah.
pictures. I
So
did that. Yeah, good for you.
and then I'm trying to prepare for my next hike, and I think it is going to be Everest Base Camp, so I'm not sure. Fingers crossed.
Oh, you are.
So
Okay. So, yes, you're my hero. I don't know if I will ever do that. Have you ever done Kilimanjaro?
that would be my next one.
Okay.
So a lot of my friends kind of said, we should try to do the hardest one first and then do the easier one. So we're kind of saying, okay, let's go that. So
Okay.
we did a test drive with Machu Picchu. So we're now going to peak and then go back to Kilimanjaro. And I
That's
also
fantastic.
and I also love cooking, so I do cook all kinds of food, and I'm a foodie, so I'm always experimenting with different cuisines, different
Do you have a favorite type of cuisine you love to cook or a favorite dish?
I'll have to be say I'm partial to Indian cooking, so I
Yeah.
do a lot of Indian cooking, and outside of that, I'm just doing a lot of healthy food. So it
Yes.
doesn't matter which cuisine, which sauces, which combination of spices. It's just, well balanced nutritional food.
Great. You're
That's
making me hungry. Okay, I have to
yeah.
ask you about the Inca Trail, right?
Yeah.
What was your most like the funnest part and the hardest part?
The hardest pass is even there is this Dead Woman's Pass, which is the highest peak on
Yeah.
the Inca Trail. So that was hard, and we
Yeah.
had to climb that in the middle of the day, so it was
Right.
really hard. But the pleasure I got after completing that successfully was the funnest part of it. I mean, I never thought I could scale that one, and I did it. And so that was a funnest part. And then actually, going to the Machu Picchu site, I think it's just there's
It's
no
so
words to
spiritual,
describe.
isn't it? It's
Yeah,
breathtaking. Spiritual,
it's
yes.
breathtaking and beautiful. So that was the nice part of it. And
Yeah.
then being in Cusco, I really loved the town.
Cusco's
It's
great. It's a
it's
very foodie town. Very much
very
so.
foodie town. Just love the vibe, the culture,
Did
everything
you eat
about
the
that was
guinea
nice.
pig?
No, I'm a
You did?
vegetarian, so
Okay, okay, good. You're like, no, I didn't try that. Okay.
there was a lot of quinoa, which was nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Well, tell people how to get a hold of you, Aparna.
Best way is to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and the other way is to, just go to Zempli, check out www.zempli.com. If you do submit forms on our site, if you're interested in knowing more about our product or services, and most of them do come to me because I still scan all the new requests that come from prospective customers. I'm still trying to, continue to find new ways of tapping into innovation ideas. And also sometimes customers are sending me emails about, this is the problem I have, what do you recommend? So those are all great inputs for us, both as a company and as a product, because we like every bit of feedback or input that we get from our customers, and we act on it. We take that very seriously.
Wow.
um, as a team, yeah, because so much about this industry is still unknown. It's in, people's heads, it's in people's experiences. It never comes out into the open, right? And for us to succeed as a company, we want to be able to tap into that knowledge because it helps, right? Peer knowledge sharing is a huge benefit. Like every caregiver needs to know what the other caregiver is going through or experiencing. And we're trying to facilitate that. We also started a podcast called AI Powered Senior Caregiving. So that's to help bring the community together to share their lived experiences of either being a caregiver or being in the industry of caregiving or in the job of caregiving.
That's
So that's another way
fantastic.
to reach out to us.
Okay, great. Awesome. And thank you very much for what you're doing. And I'm really glad you're doing it. I'm really glad you're doing it. And yeah, you're paving the way for us to have a better life in the future and also for the elderly that we have now to have better lives aging in place.
Thank you for saying that. I think we all have to, design our future, as I said. And it was great being here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, feel free to reach out at any time.
Fantastic. All right, that's a wrap, everyone. If you learned something today, I know you did. Go tell someone about this podcast. And thanks for listening to Disruption Interruption, where we transform lives, we change behavior, we alter economics, and we never accept the status quo. Ciao for now.
Because we live in a highly litigious society, with America being one of the top litigious countries in the world, here's our legal disclaimer. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional public relations or legal advice. Do not disregard seeking professional legal, healthcare, or financial advice, or delay seeking professional PR or legal advice because of something you have heard here. Contact an attorney to obtain advice on any particular legal situation or problem. Use of this podcast or our website or any of its social media or email links do not create an agency-client relationship between Johto PR and the user.